Good morning. It's nice and early in the morning, somewhere around 5 a.m. The sun is coming through the windows. Got one light on here. Had some intense dreams last night. I think it's associated with the pain that I have. It's physical pain. I had a procedure and I had a bad reaction to it, and these doctors' offices are all set up to slow you down. I'm not getting the consultation that I got to have. Spent yesterday trying to get it during regular office hours. And the on-call people were doing nothing but putting roadblocks up. Very passive aggressive. How do you spell John? I had to go through it twice with the woman and with her supervisor. They were both very passive aggressive. And I guess that's acceptable because you're polite. As long as you're polite, you can be passive aggressive. It's one thing I learned about living in the South is they blessed you out. Man, did they tell you out right to your face, but they did it in such a nice way that you liked it. Not so much that you liked it, but you thought you were being treated respectfully, and you just weren't catching on the fact they were running circles around you mentally, doing whatever they could to insult you. Our medical profession is horrible. They've lost almost all credibility, and they deserve to lose credibility. My dreams were really intense. Some of it was a little twisted. I think that's because of the pain. It was an expression of the pain that I have. They were in color. I sang in my dream. It's like at a picnic. And somebody, I guess they shut my music off. Once they queued it up, once they started the tape rolling I was supposed to sing to. Sitting there on the picnic in front of everybody. It was a cowboy. How they hurt your name, defamed you. I was making it up on the spot, I think, but I was on pitch in the dream. Now, what's so unusual is that my hearing is different. I was supposed to go deaf by the time I was 12, secondary to mastoiditis, which was caused by German measles, which, Lord knows, could have been caused by one of their experimentation jabs back then. I don't trust anything. I look back over the history and I question a lot of stuff. I know we're not supposed to be questioning authority, but at this point, authority is definitely screwing with us. It's almost all a psyop at this point. I got up kind of angry with so much pain and real sensitive. And I can't get a consult, a decent consult at the doctor's office. Was told to call back Monday. I was on the phone for not quite 2 hours, about an hour and a half trying to get through. Finally, they called me, and they wouldn't really hear. They'd listen to me, but they didn't hear me. When I was trying to tell them about the consult I had with the after-hours physician, she keeps talking about the physician's assistant. And I'm telling her I don't think I got the right diagnosis. I don't think we got the right treatment. I need some clarification. And all she can do is harp on what the physician's assistant says. Well, screw that. I talked with the doctor there. Now, who's in charge? The physician's assistant? Oh, I got it. The on-call people are on charge. They're running the show. And other than that, whoever it was, Andriana, who called me, she's running the show. But they don't want to listen. Maybe it's cultural. The Spanish culture is so much different from ours. And here we are trying to keep our culture and our people alive, and we aren't doing very good at it. They're whacking us left and right. I think that we're in a war, and obviously it's biological and psychological, and people won't wake up to it. And it's pretty easy. If you stop participating in this government, if you ignore them and form your own governments, according to Patricia Wheat, she ran for Congress out of one of the Carolinas and didn't win. I guess she came really close to winning. Brilliant woman. She was the one that pointed out to me the Second Amendment, the word necessary. The only time the word necessary is mentioned in our entire Constitution is in the Second Amendment, saying a well-regulated militia being necessary. Not even the Supreme Court's necessary. The president's certainly not necessary. We can see what it's like to run the country without one. And then the Congress. Good God. Mark Twain. Samuel Clemens got it right. We have the best congressman money can buy. And those boys are doing their shenanigans right in front of the rest of us, sending money overseas where it can go right back into their personal bank accounts and to their children's personal bank accounts. Wow. And we let them get away with it. It's legal for them to do insider trading, but the rest of us go to prison if we get a tip and act on it. God, I remember when the inmates were trying to get me to buy certain stocks and stuff. Boy, they wouldn't even give their scams up when they were in prison. They're very convincing. It's the same with sociopaths on the outside. They're very convincing. They won't even give their scams up. So I wonder how many people, especially Democrats, run around saying Trump-Russia collusion today. Look, I don't think there's any Trump-Russia collusion, but what I will tell you is they're secret societies, and we certainly aren't parties to them because they're pretty much secret, and they're just for the elite people. And those are the guys running the show today. Yeah. They haven't seen the light of day yet, but they're awfully close to it. But at the same time that we're awfully close to exposing them getting their asses exposed, they're going to cause a world war on us. It's the only card they got left is a war. So, how's this war working for you? Look, I am not even going to mention that bullshit crap that come out of Wuhan this time and they're claiming it started in Africa again. They're a bunch of liars and a bunch of thieves. It's a military, medical, industrial complex. We've been told that for quite a while, and it took me a long time to catch on, but it's definitely a military, medical, industrial complex. We don't have good medicine in the United States. Oh, we got the best medicine in the world. No, we got the best snow job in the world is what we got. We got the best deception in the world. We got people running around thinking they're the greatest in the world, and they're dumbasses. They don't know jack. They don't know anything. Our understanding is limited. I include myself in that. You know, I didn't read the classics in the original language, and that's what you got to do if you really want to know something. And our problem's much bigger than what you think. You know, we got a Bible. It documents basically one of the fallen angels seducing Eve. Now, we don't know under what circumstances. Eve might have been the one that started it for all we know. We just don't know. And we got this entire mess laid out in the Bible from one fallen angel. And the problem is, he's only one out of 200. So the problem is much bigger than what you think. And you folks that want to finger and poke at the Jews and tell me I'm anti-Semitic, I'm really getting tired of that. But I'm going to try to tell you where you can look to get a little bit. You need a reference? I can't say anything. I got to give you a reference. Where are your references? What are your sources? Well, William Guy Carr, Admiral William Guy Carr in His Majesty's Navy was a Canadian subject, not a citizen, a subject. And he started his investigations in 1911 as a young man. Why? Because the bad guys tried to recruit him into their bullshit. And he discovered the communist plot. He wrote a book called Pawns in the Game. I highly suggest it. He wrote about 4 books. I think one was published by his son posthumously. And it's not very well written. It's not finished off. I don't recommend that book. I think it's Satan, Prince of this Planet, something like that. Prince of the World. If I push myself through it, I'd probably find some good stuff in there, but I got other stuff to read. But you all need to get William Guy Carr's crowding book, the best one of all. Now, I bought his books, had them shipped to my mom. I let her go through them first for me. Well, she read pretty fast and she loved it anyway. So I'd let her read the books first and then ship them to me. And when she got to Pawns in the Game, she told me that was his best book because she had read the others. Heck, she had all four up there, 3 or 4 of them up there in her possession. And she recommended that book because everything was in there. Now I'm going to break it down for you. He said there are basically 2 points of the spear working against us. And the 2 grand conspiracies was the Zionist, okay. All right, the Zionists wanted to take over the world. And the other one was the world revolution or communism. And then if you want to make it a little crazy, you can go back and you can find Jews on both sides. All right, fine. William Guy Carr emphasized the fact that it wasn't the Jewish people, that the Jewish people had been used and exploited in this. And I initially resisted his assertion. I mean, everybody wants to make it easy, wants to make it black and white. They want to have something upon which to hang everything on. They want a scapegoat. They want it simple. The problem is it's not simple. Now that we've exposed part of Judaism, if you will, part of the Jews, and we haven't even gone there very far because I really don't care to do that, there's another group. This other group seems to be in charge of secret societies. Now, what group would that be? Why, it's the Catholics. Or they are Catholics, or pretend to be Catholics. I don't know, and I don't care at this point. You figure out what it is. What I will tell you is that the Jesuit general, the Black Pope, said that from his little office across the street from the Vatican, he ran all the secret societies of the world. Not just a couple of them, but all of them. Of course, that also means he runs the intelligence outfits too, because they're in that mess. He said he ran it all from his office. I was in Florence, Italy. I heard that story from my librarian. I don't remember her name, but I loved talking with her. She loved telling us stories. Her stories were as important as the lectures I was getting. Well, pretty close. Sometimes they were more important. For instance, the time when the Pope gave birth to a male child in the middle of a public square in Rome. Yeah, it really happened. And you people run around talking about transgendered people or identity theft or any of that. Man, we had a Pope that gave birth to a beautiful baby boy right in public. I don't remember this. I remember they pointed out which intersection it was in Rome. I didn't go down there and hang out. I didn't take notes. I wish I'd have taken notes from the librarian. So, we got a real bad set of problems, not just one. Now that we've fingered the bastards, it's time to get the mirror out and realize that the problem's us. The problem is you and me. Doesn't matter what those people do. Yes, it matters a little bit, but the problem is us. It's you and me, and what matters is what we do, and we can control that. You and I have control over that to a very large extent. And if we don't have control over it, we do need to examine ourselves and find out what our stops are. What stops us? What robs us of our power? Now, our failure is that at Mount Sinai, Yahweh gave us 10 commandments. They are virtually natural law. If you look at them carefully, you'll realize this is just natural law. It's not the law of the jungle, it's natural law. And they're simple, straight-ahead adages, if you want, commandments, if you want, sins, if you like, whatever you want to call them. Basically, they tell you the key principles. You know, it's not a good idea to kill. It's not a good idea to murder. It's not a good idea to rape, pillage, steal, all kinds of stuff. Why? Because the other son of a bitch will kill your ass. I mean, that's just natural law. That you will get whacked in return for having killed somebody else. Or whacked as you're in the process trying to kill somebody. So, I mean, I don't look at those 10 Commandments as being really far out there. I mean, that's kind of the basis of Western civilization. How civilized does the West look now? Look, we were captured. We were deported in place. They didn't even have to move us this time. They superimposed a false jurisdiction on us. That's what they've got going. There's a series of frauds that have been executed upon the American people. So we're living the dream. We're living the fraud is what it is. We're going along with it. We're consenting. So, you want to get out of it? Not that hard. Abide by the 10 Commandments as best you can. There will be conflicts when you're trying to abide by one of them over another one. There will be dilemmas that you'll get put in. Those are rare, but they do occur. That's not the norm, but you got to deal with it when it happens. There are two giant points of the spear. One is Zionism, the other one is communism. Rabbi Weiss, I don't remember his first name, said that communism is Judaism. That's what he claimed. He was the fellow that roused up Americans against Adolf Hitler, pretty much. I forgot. I'm not supposed to mention that name. Was their cause to go against Adolf? I don't really know. I don't know how much of a setup. I do think there was a setup, and I think the bankers set it all up. I think the bankers put him in power. The bankers gave him power, kept him in power, and I think he was another frickin' puppet. I think Putin is a puppet too. I think he might have decided that he was going to throw off their yoke. He was going to get rid of their slavery. I think he might have decided he was going to act on the best interest of the Russian people instead of those folks that forced that revolution on them in 1917. I also think that these guys that run the show take turns going after one another, after countries, and I think it was Putin's number was up, and he was shrewd enough to realize that they had targeted his ass and targeted his nation. By the way, America's been targeted. The Bilderbergers announced many years ago that they were going to take the United States down, and they cheered. They all cheered at that meeting. That's the report we have now. I don't know if you want to trust Alex Jones or not. I think Alex Jones is CIA all the way. He's also was married into the Bronfman family, that famous Irish family from Canada that runs the alcohol and all that stuff. Oh yeah, ladies, I got a problem, and I've been meaning to talk about this. You all demanded the right to vote. You all were fooled. That right to vote, all those marches occurred after a woman from Russia named Alexandria, and this is according to Eustace Mullins, because, well, he is the one that wrote it. That's where I got it from, and it could be wrong, so I'm not perfect. I'm not always right. I'm fairly self-correcting. A woman named Alexandria, I think the year was 1911, toured the eastern coast of the United States, because that's what we had primarily right then, and in the wilderness, the territories. And she riled up the women and started some sort of a feminist kind of a thing, where they were pointing out how downtrodden women were. And I think that when we bought that Napoleonic Code territory, the Louisiana Purchase, some of the stuff that came along with that, with their norms, their mores and stuff, wasn't the same as what it was like for the New England states. Women in the New England states had a bigger role and a better standing. Whereas the Napoleonic Code, I believe, that literally made women chattel, that the man owned his wife, or whatever she owned became his. There were some things about that that were completely different than the original colonies. And so we brought that vast territory along with their mores and their laws and their culture into ours. And it did spice things up quite literally when you look at the Cajun people that were out of there. Yeah, I'm a predecessor to the Cajuns. The Arcadians up in Canada on the Canadian United States border eventually migrated down into Louisiana and became the Cajuns. They were an oppressed people, came over here to get away from what was happening in Europe. And I guess the Indians, the French, riled the Indians up against them. And later those same Indians were used by King George against us, where they, remember, they put a triple bounty on long blonde hair. All right, standard bounty on short hair. Anyway, listen to the other doggone presentations. Women, you march for the right to vote. The problem was voting wasn't established at the federal level at all. So what you did is you fell into the devil's trap again. And that trap was to federalize the government even more, to get more power. Oh, don't worry, the physicians went into that firsthand. You want to know how these medical doctors became the powerhouses they are today? They paid. They bribed their way. They paid homage to the king. They decided they wanted professional licenses and they wanted to rule the roost, and they didn't want the competition. There was too much competition for them, and the competition was better than they were. And they wanted to dominate. So what did they do? They volunteered. The physicians volunteered for an income tax. You know, it was originally for people with professional licenses, not for the average man or woman. And so the physicians volunteered for a 1% federal income tax. And they got pissed off the next year when they doubled the income tax to a whopping 2%. So the idea is you pay homage to the king, and the king gives you authority, and the king gives you a monopoly. And so the medical profession was able to put the other healing professions in jail, not figuratively, but literally. They got them run out of business. And we had all sorts of medical practices back then that were pretty good, pretty decent. Even cannabis was legal. Now, I don't really care much for it. I think overall it's detrimental, but then again, you already have a medical system that's based upon principles of poisoning, toxicity, and disabling. So why not give them cannabis? Slow them down, retard them a little bit, give them a little bit of pain relief, psychic pain relief, whatever, physical pain relief. The other problem is it looks like the cannabis plant, the oil of it was used in the making of the anointing oil back in the Bible. I think it's in there. You'd have to dig for it. It's not a major interest of mine, but I do think it's in there. I think hemp oil was a part of that concoction. They used oil more as a medicine back then, and with good reason, and we should be doing that again today. Ladies, when you got the right to vote, what's the first thing you did? Yeah, got the temperance movement going, because you were going to straighten up your husbands, and you were going to dominate, and you were going to make sure they didn't get anything to drink, because you felt like that would take care of everything, because they got a little out of sorts when they drank too much. All right, I'm putting it in simple terms, trying to keep it on earth here. Well, you made alcohol illegal, and as a result, you created organized crime. Yeah. I can just imagine those mafia-like people sitting in the background waiting for you to make it a law so they could go making a big business out of breaking the law. And I'm sure you ladies had a lot of fun too, drinking on the quiet, on the QT, on the sly, on the side. I'm sure it was really exciting to go out, forbidden fruit, doing what you weren't supposed to be doing, and sneaking around, maybe even hopping up a few cars and outrunning the revenuers of the law and all that stuff, and bootlegging. I'll bet it was a really exciting time. The problem was that organized crime, bootlegging, the Canadian bootleggers in particular coming down into the country, gave rise to another bunch of criminals that were even worse. Gave rise, I don't remember the original name for the Bureau, but it gave rise to organized police in violation of the Constitution. You see, boys and girls, all policing was reserved to the states. All policies, policing, law enforcement was reserved to the states. States had militias back then. We were mostly good people back then, too. You had to be on good standing to be a member of the militia. Every guy was a member of the militia. He wanted to be able to hang out with his buddies. He wanted to be part of that crowd. He wanted to be armed and prepared and have a little bit of power and a little bit of influence. And he wanted a little bit of backing, too. And he provided that as well. That's why you need a militia. The psychological impacts are tremendous. You're not going to be a member of the militia if you're not a citizen. And you're not going to be in possession of firearms unless you're a citizen, a free man, and you're not a felon. We had it made back then, because if a guy didn't mind his P's and his Q's, he wouldn't be a member of the militia in good standing. And the guys, we didn't want that. We wanted to be a member in good standing. Oh, they were our buddies. They were our friends. We could count upon them. If something bad was happening, they would bring in the muscle and help make it right. The militia even corrected the legislature in the state of New Hampshire, where I was born. The incident at Exeter, there's a couple of them. One was a UFO thing. A biracial couple, by the way, discovered by the aliens, if you will, captured by them and apparently kidnapped and examined. I must have thrown the aliens off a little bit. I don't think there were many biracial marriages back in the 50s, but that's one of them. I got the book somewhere. My mother wanted me to read it. Said it was fascinating. I think I still have that. I hope I do. But anyway, the other incident at Exeter was where the legislature was failing to do its duty, and the state people needed the legislature to to clarify things in the law. I don't even remember what the issue was, but I do remember this. It was after the start of the Revolutionary War, war of self-defense, not rebellion. And Portsmouth was the capital at the time, and Portsmouth was on the coast. And, of course, the British had one heck of a navy, and there was fear that the capital could be invaded by the British. After all, other capitals had been invaded by the British. So they moved the capital into Exeter, New Hampshire. And when the legislators went into the temporary legislative building for their session, the militia members surrounded the building and gave the legislators an ultimatum. It was, you will do your job. You will write this legislation up. And no one's leaving the building until you finish your job. And no one's entering the building until you finish the job. Now, I don't know if they had bathrooms in that building or not. I think we still used outdoor plumbing back then. Outhouses. So nobody's going to be able to leave to use a bathroom. I'm just taking a guess. It's not in the book anywhere. Remember, I'm telling you when I'm thinking about some things. But the other thing was no food and drink. Nobody's carrying anything into that building. Nobody's interrupting the legislators. Only the legislators were allowed in. They had to sort this problem out and write it up and finish their work. And I think they stayed up all night, and the militia stayed up all night surrounding them, imprisoning them till they got the job done. So the militias were more important than the legislators. The militias were more powerful than the judges, or anything back then. We need our militias because the malicious ones among us are rearing their ugly heads. They're doing insurrections, and I'm not going to remind you the name of that. That might get me in trouble here with this fine platform. So they were doing insurrections. We've got insurrections going on here lately too. And we're getting ready for some big ones, which is why I've been pumping and humping and telling you, get the militias going, because you're going to wish you had them. I don't care how disorganized or how loose they are. You need the militias formed up. You need them getting ready. Don't worry, it's such an organic thing that men will flock. I've been telling people in Arizona, first man, I don't want any of these female candidates that got running. I just don't like them. The first man that says we need our militia and creates a state militia for Arizona, I think he gets everything. I think he wins the prize. I think he becomes governor. I think money goes to him. I think men flock to him from other states because we'll be allowed to defend ourselves for a change instead of being subject to this illegal, immoral, unethical government in the Washington District of Criminals. It's a corporate government. It's not an organic government. It's not a legal body at all. I think it was 1871 when they did the Organic Act, the Act of Washington, D.C., whatever it was. That's one of those areas that I really need to read about. There's got to be some good history books on that somewhere. Anyway, we got a two-pronged movement that's coming together at the same time. And we've also got another group of non-Jews that call themselves Catholics that are into this stuff big time because that Roman canon law is the law under which they've captured us all at this particular point. So, and then we got Washington, D.C., which is their arm of muscle. And in case you're wondering, the Roman stuff actually went up to the city of London, whereby the corporation, the crown, not the figurehead crown, but the corporation, which is, I think, nothing but attorneys who are pulling this Roman law across the rest of the world, defrauding us. I think that's a large part of the problem. And I just want to tell you that I'm pretty happy because I think we have no choice. I think we have to go the militia route as fast as we can. And I also think that we need to kick out all the foreigners. We need willpower. We don't need no freaking wall. I'd just as soon go to war against Mexico and use the entire country for a buffer, occupy it. They're invading us. It's a war. The Chinese are waging war against us. And the famous Chinese general back in the 1990s said they couldn't win a nuclear war. It would have to be biological. They've been working on it since 1998, something like that. And there's a psychological aspect. And it does look as though both points of the spear are coming together because you've got so much overlap right now. You've got Bill Gates of hell with his spyware on all of our computers. Yeah, there's backdoors in every one of those computers. They've been doing corporate spying for a long time so that they can run roughshod over the rest of us, steal our stuff and our ideas. Bill Gates is working on the biological stuff for the Chi-Coms, with the Chi-Coms. But let's go back to the Bible. If we read the Bible, especially the minor prophets, I think it's Zechariah. There's a couple prophets, Zephaniah, Zechariah. I think if we read carefully, we see the nuclear war described. I think if we read carefully, we see the pox described. And of course, they're bringing a pox out right now. I didn't think they'd bring out something so ludicrous and so weird. I'm getting tired of Glenn Beck, too, a jackass on the radio. How you people can stand him and how you can support him. And the guy is syndicated. He's nothing but a CIA mockingbird jackass. Those guys like him and O'Reilly, Their jobs are to do specific hit pieces. They'll give you a bunch of other stuff, toss you all kinds of bones, toss the dog a bone, and then they hit you with a bit of poison and they kill the dog. They're no good. Any radio show, any talk show that's syndicated is NFG, non-functional gear. They're all controlled by those corporations. I think it's from 6 to 5 corporations that control our media. It ain't exactly the Irish that own those media either. But you got to remember, William Guy Carr said that the Jews were being used, misused and abused. And I believe that. And I believe another book that reveals that to a very significant extent is called The Transfer Agreement by Edwin Black. Read that book. It'll tell you about a good group and a bad group. And it'll tell you who won and how they won. And it'll tell you what the prize was. Now, don't get me wrong. Yahweh works in mysterious ways. And as much as I will tell you that little postage stamp of a country in the Middle East is illegal and shouldn't exist, that it was all done by hook and by crook, by thievery, by fraud, by the Rothschilds, and by Sir Balfour and the Crown. Yahweh may have done that. They may have a legitimacy to them, after all. Why do I say that? Because I read in the book. I read that the armies go up against Jerusalem. Jerusalem is attacked. Half the people are killed. The other half are taken into captivity, into slavery. That's everybody. But then it says a residue shall be left, and then Yahweh will step in and fight like he did in the ancient days of Israel, the early days. And those I don't pull from the Bible for. Those are more or less fairy tales. They're kind of myths that I've heard, and I don't find any foundation for them in the Bible. But who knows at this point? We've got a lot of myths out there that turn out to be quite true. And before you go about thinking one religion is better than another religion, I would like to point out there's a giant round table in Kazakhstan. In one of their buildings, I think it's the Capitol building, Kazakhstan's capital. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a beautiful place. Incredible architecture, incredible symbolism that ain't exactly positive. And you've got all of these religions at a giant round table, you know, like wheels on one of those machines they use playing games and wagering, gaming. They all have a seat at the table in which they all worship the sun. Now, why do they worship the sun? And is the sun any good to worship at all? Apollyon is the name of the fallen angel, the Greek name for the fallen angel in the abyss. Now, why is it called the abyss? Might it not be the abyss in space? Might it not be our virtual sun that hammers the earth with lightning bolts every 11,500 years, 25,000 years, 125,000 years or so, when the sun throws lightning bolts at the earth? What's another name for lightning bolt? Oh, Barak. Okay. And what was it that the people in South America that built that city that was elevated so high trying to tell us with their stone art? They showed us that the sun had phases and eventually became angry, and it threw down serpents of lightning at the earth. Basically, they're trying to tell you that it's an electric universe and that we're going to come into a place in which the earth has got to get bombarded with this stuff again, and it's going to be havoc for us on the surface of the planet, and real bad for the people that think they're going to go underneath to escape it too. Read the Bible. It's in there, folks. It talks about how God's going to drown them up like rats and they're going to be searched out. They've deprived us of our real history and our real science. We don't even have our real rights. We can't even talk about this stuff anymore. We can't even debate stuff. We can't even debate absurd stuff just as an intellectual exercise, which is what I think we need. We need to be able to talk about the absurd, to brainstorm, overcome their brainwashing by brainstorming, break out of the prevailing brainwashing that's going on the planet. Ladies, you gave us the right to vote. Well, actually, you didn't. You took the right to vote for yourselves. We men still don't have the right to vote. Oh, and you gave yourselves the right to kill our children. They're not just your children. We men have a little bit of, we've got skin in the game, literally. Remember, it's just one sperm and one egg. There's just two cells that form that original cell, in which that flash of light comes as the soul is merged into those cells, as that human being is conceived. That's the moment of conception. And you all insist you have the right to commit murder. Oh, I'm not saying you all do it. I'm saying you insist that you, in your class, based upon the plumbing that you have got a right to kill your children because it's your body. It ain't your body. It's my body too. There's part of a man there too. We don't get a choice in this matter. Well, we do get a choice, but as far as having another human being and having children, we don't have a choice. Well, there probably are test tube babies by now, but we average men don't have a choice. And on top of that, it ain't your body. You may have the oven. It may be your womb. You may be stuck with it for 9 months, but the fact is, it's the child's body, not yours. And you insist you have to have total rights over it? The right, R-I-T-E, of child sacrifice, of child murder? Look, Roe versus Wade just kicks it back to the states where it always should have been. Getting rid of the 19th Amendment kicks it back to the states where it should have always been. Each state should be able to set their own procedures for voting, and they can all be different without any problem. Local rule is best. Your defense is going to be local too. So you ladies need to get behind that if you want to have defense, if you want to defend the nation. If you want a nation, you need to get behind that. I don't think it's very hard to correct things. Patricia Wheat's idea is that we needed to do it at the state level. We need to ignore these corporate governments and form our own governments. We need to ignore these corporate institutionalized debaucheries. As far as I can see, those are the abortions. Those are the frauds. I think we need to, those are the illegitimate ones. Those are the bastards. We need organic governments again. We need to get rid of these corporates with corporate numbers that make money off our birth certificate numbers, this giant fraud, social insurance foisted upon us, Social Security. Yeah, I know. You're going to be out there telling me, you can't take, Dr. Kent wants to take my Social Security away from me. No, I don't. In case you're wondering, there's probably millions of dollars in your name sitting in trust for you that you don't even know about. So you want to have that measly check of $500 a month, I think $550 is the lowest, or $1,000 a month, or would you like to have the 6 or 8 million, or maybe even more than that you're worth? That thing they created that they're making money off because they sold your ass on the stock market. Stock. Catalysts are stock. Stock are stock. And that bull that you see on the market, that golden calf, remember that story? The Israelites made 2 of them. They doubled down on their error. We doubled down on our error. And of course, the people that came out of Egypt only made one golden calf. And they were forced to eat it too. It's a mixed up, screwed up world. Okay, and we've got to bring goodness to it. We have to organize it. It needs to be organized at a local level. All education needs to return to Little Red Schoolhouse. I can't wait to fire the NEA, fire those teachers. They're not doing a good job. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to be held prisoner to them. I don't want my land taxed. Oh, and the Kents gave you non-taxable land. You owned your property. Nobody could attach it. Nobody could tax it. That's what the Kents gave the world. A loyal title. The only county in England in which the king gave a loyal title. Gee, I wonder why that is. And then over here, yes, many of us were given a loyal title over here, including the Kents. And I want my land back. If you like my job, that's my real wages. I almost said something kind of absurd and cussed, but we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We do need to restore the structure, the foundation, exactly the way our founders gave it to us. The first thing we do is restore the original 13th Amendment, and we eliminate all subsequent amendments. Now, this is a strategic intervention, and you can't read about it in books yet. I pretty much invented it, and I have actually piggybacked off Eustace Mullins. He didn't suggest doing this. That's the intervention Dr. Kent prescribes. You want a union, you want a republic, you want a democracy, this is what you got to do. The second step after that is to go round up all the stockholders for the Federal Reserve and all the officers, all the board members, because we got to protect them. So we protect them for their own sake. And while we've got them in our protective good graces custody, we tax them. And we tax them in gold or silver. We don't tax them in the greenback fiat phony monopoly money they've gifted us over the decades, over the centuries of their progressive fraud. We tax them at 105% of their profits since their inception. Doesn't mean this year. It means since they started. And when they complain about it, we remind them, you made us pay you back with interest out of money that didn't exist, thereby putting us in a double bind and thereby robbing us of our property. Yeah, robber barons and thieves. And we just have to issue gold and silver coin again. I don't really want to go to gold too much. I want to go to silver, but silver is an industrial metal, and there's speculation that there's not enough silver in the world, and there's more gold, and gold isn't being used in electronics as much. So the silver has more utility, more industrial uses, more value. And by the way, when silver becomes king again and we're using it, Mexico is going to be far more wealthy than the United States. And the Mexicans naturally will go down there. But I still want to wage war with them. I still want to conquer them. I still want to occupy them for all the crap they've been throwing our way, all this invasion for all of this time. And I think also that I'd like to get rid of their cartels. I'd like to get rid of the foreign influence. The Chicoms, I think, are down there. I want to get rid of all that stuff. I want to get that stuff out of the Americas completely. But that's a progressive thing. I hate using that word, but it's going to have to go stepwise. We need to get the commies out of D.C. first, or wall them off or something and imprison them. We need to go back to the states' rights. We need the militias here. Voting goes back to the way the states want to do it. We need a hard currency that can't be conflated, we can't be deprived of it. We need to go back to patented land. Patented land was what we got over here. They issued a patent on the land that was given to us, the alloidal title land that was originally given to us. And so I want my land back with the patents, and I want to kick the University of Southern New Hampshire out of my pocket completely. I don't want them around at all. Bunch of communists. That fine house that was built there, I don't know if I can afford to maintain that or not. But if I got the rest of the land and I'm renting out the houses and property on my land, I can afford to maintain my main house, and I can afford to maintain the rest. And I want Adams Point back too. I want to kick the state off that. I want the state out of the fields. I want to do what I can to get rid of those ticks that were placed there by our illustrious federal government after they invented and created those insects with their disease on Plum Island. Go look it up on the map off the coast of New York. It's not there for good reason. They polluted that thing with all the stuff they've done on it. I think it's going to be pretty easy to get it back. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our founders gave us the perfect structure. Besides that, we're not going to be able to agree upon anything. So we might as well go to the original founders and agree to limit our agreements on that to restoring self-rule. So we revert to the actual legal, legitimate 13th Amendment. We get rid of all the others. The IRS, that amendment was never voted upon. It was merely announced as having been ratified. And it started in the Philippines, and they moved it to Costa Rica. That's got to end. We've got to straighten up the judicial system as well. There is no lifetime appointment. That's not in the Constitution. And all of them are under bad behavior. Oh, my God. Justice Sotomayor, I agreed with her this last week. She was the dissenting opinion, and she wrote a scathing opinion. And for the first time, I find myself agreeing with her. Good Lord. I guess a broken clock is right twice a day. You know? Well, Justice Sotomayor, you did something right, you old racist, genderist, sexist. I just don't like you on that court. And I got a question. Why is there not a single WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, on the Supreme Court? And will you wake up and realize that the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants are the descendants of Isaac, or Israelites, and that's why they're going after us? And that this is an old fight from long ago? There is no New World Order. That's just being repackaged and sold to you. It's the same old world order of the devils ruling the roost, ruling the place. And you ladies went willingly, from what I can tell. I know there's a lot of history to be sorted out. We will have a really good time if we can survive this period, if we can pull it together. We need to wall off all those people in D.C. and process them for their crimes. They need to be held fully accountable. I just as soon wall it in, surround it with our militias, and go about studying those malicious bastards inside there and what they've been doing to us. Man, maybe we could take after South Africans. What did they have? The something of truth, the commissions of truth, which didn't care about the truth down there, did they, though? Well, I think we've got our work cut out for us. You need to be reading these Bibles. You will read about the nuclear war, the coming nuclear war. You will read about the biological war. Yeah. You'll read about the pox being so bad, so horrible that men would pray to God to die. They want relief that much. I got to sit still, otherwise it exacerbates my pain. I hate being hobbled like this. Whenever I get to meet Yahweh, I'm going to ask him some questions. Like, why did I have to go through this? Why did you put me through this? And I'm going to tell him it wasn't fair. I don't think it was fair. I got to be honest with my Father now. I'm sure by then I'll have better understanding and I won't be so insubordinate. Folks, can you imagine the number of human beings that are behind each one of us? You know, it's like a giant tree. How many people were involved in your creation? You got your mother and your father, you know that. You got your grandparents, that's 4. You got your great-grandparents. What's that take it back to? 8? Then they've got their great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, takes it back to 16, and then 32. So, you know, you are the culmination of a lot of other beings, a lot of other people. Were they all people? That's the question. I think there's spoilers among us. I think that we were hybrids, we're an amalgam. I think there was some genetic engineering. It wouldn't surprise me if the other beings in the universe got so advanced that they lost their way, that they became separated from their original essences, and that they decided, look, let's have an experiment. Let's put our boys and girls down on this planet. See how they develop. Let them sort things out. Let them show us the way so that we can be totally feeling beings like we once were. Maybe they got too advanced. Maybe they got too far separated from their bodies. Maybe we're all down here as a giant experiment while they try to figure out what's best. Maybe we're becoming what we're supposed to become. Maybe this is all there is to it. Who knows? What we do know is that science hasn't gone very far. We've separated into distinct disciplines that don't talk to each other. And as a result, knowledge is divided. It's lost in that process. The history that we have yet to discover has got to be just incredible. That's why they keep us out of Antarctica. They don't want us to discover our history. Some of those myths are more true than what you might think. One of my visions, the cross was lifted up and shoved into a hole in the earth close to the equator. And when that beam went deep into the earth and up in the air, the entire earth shifted slowly at a steady pace as that cross went to the top of the world, north. Thanks for hanging out to the end.